Welcome to First and 10, presented by Allstate with Sporting News college football writer Matt Hayes. I'm Stephen Levine in the Sporting News studio. Now, Matt, LSU is still undefeated, but somehow they managed to drop in the polls anyway after lackluster performances 2 weeks in a row. What is going on with LSU?
You know, I can tell you this, Stephen, as much as anything, I really believe this is a situation where soft cupcake scheduling the first month of the season has hurt this team. If you look back at last year, started out with Oregon in that game in Cowboy Stadium. You know, they play West Virginia on the road. This is a team, I think, that was ready then, ready to play big games, ready to play week after week. You know, now you got a team that's got a couple cupcakes. They play a bad Washington team, and they're kind of like sleepwalking through games. And now the next thing you know, they're going to Gainesville in a big game against a very hot Florida team, against a very confident Florida team. And all of a sudden you look at LSU, and they do not look like the second best or the first best, you know, depending on who you talk to, team in the country. They are a team right now that's lacking in confidence. They got a quarterback who keeps fumbling the ball. They got wide receivers that aren't making plays. They've got a defense that aren't making plays on the defensive line when they have the best defensive line in the country. You look at this situation and you really start to understand what Nick Saban means when he says he loves playing those games first week of the season, right out of the box against a big-time opponent. Michigan, Virginia Tech, you know, those games, he says, keeps his team focused throughout the offseason, gets them ready for the season. And I really believe right now that's where LSU is.
Well, is this game in Gainesville against Florida, is it the game that determines who the second best team in the SEC is?
I think this game, if you see Florida, they go in there and they play well against LSU and they win that game, I think you have to say Florida is the second best team in the SEC simply because the two big road wins against Tennessee and Texas A&M, and now this win against LSU if it happens.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the Heisman race. I mean, it's early yet, but Geno Smith, quarterback for West Virginia, has just been lights out. 20 TDs in 4 games, completed over 83% of his passes, yet they have played no team of consequence. Are we getting an unrealistic view of how good this guy is because of their weak schedule?
I can tell you this, Stephen. Eddie George, who I respect a lot, former Heisman winner, Ohio State great, said last weekend, it's over, give it to Geno Smith. And I'm thinking to myself, let's see. He's played the 115th ranked defense in Marshall, the dead last defense, 120 in Baylor, an FCS team in Jimmy Madison, and a Maryland team that's ranked number 8 in defense, but we all know that Maryland team's horrible. Horrible, okay? So that's what he's faced so far. Now they go to Texas. They go on the road for their first true road game because that FedEx Field game against Jimmy Madison was not a road game. So now they're on the road in Austin, a hostile environment. Mac Brown tweeted, Stephen, on Monday that he expects it to be the best environment ever at Texas for this game. How about that? So let's see what Geno does now against a pretty good defense that could get its best player back in linebacker Jordan Hicks. Let's see what happens on the road, a tough environment, when he's playing a defense that can cover somebody, and more importantly, when he's playing a defense that can rush the quarterback.
Okay, well, let's say that he falters against Texas. Who's the next guy in line on your Heisman list?
You know what? For me, Stephen, I am a Heisman voter, and I can tell you this right now. I'm not having any kind of list the first month of the season. I'm not having any kind of list the first 6 weeks of the season. I want it all to play out a little bit. I want it to ferment a little bit, Stephen. And right now, we're at the point where I think, you know, you could even say, if you're going to start talking about who are the other guys, let's say Texas wins that game, Stephen, and David Ash has a big game. Why not David Ash, considering what he's done this year?
Why not? Why not indeed? Let's talk a little bit about the Big Ten. Arguably the best team in that conference is not even eligible for their championship. Of course, talking about Ohio State for that matter, they're not eligible for a BCS championship either. What does that say about this conference when their best team can't be crowned victor at the end of the season?
Well, I can tell you this. This is what it has come to in the big, bad Big Ten, Stephen, okay? After Ohio State wins at Michigan State, you got the Michigan State coaches complaining that Ohio State sent doctored tape, pre-game tape that, you know, everybody is, by rule, supposed to send each other. And after that, a couple days after the game, Ohio State sends an official letter to the Big Ten stating that a Michigan player poked the eyes of another Ohio State player. Like that's never happened in college football or pro football or Pop Warner football. It happens. So this is where we're at. The Big Ten is screaming and yelling and saying, look at me, we can't play football, but guess what? We know how to create things and we know how to create publicity for ourselves. So they got that going for them, Stephen.
So Ohio State creating publicity, but also Northwestern creating some publicity for the conference.
Yeah, you know what? 5-0. I love what's going on there at Northwestern. How can you not like Pat Fitzgerald? But you know what? I want to see them play a team right now that actually means something. When they play a game that means something, then we're going to see what kind of team they really have.
All right, there you go. That's Matt Hayes, college football writer for Sporting News. You've been watching All State's First and 10. Join us again next week.